I haven't like really talked to you since 2017.
I mean, welcome to Sex Lies and Spray Tans, and this is why I love this podcast. Who is Lindsey behind the dancing violinist?
Oh man. Sometimes you forget. You're like, oh yeah, I am a real person behind like this persona that I, spend so much of my time investing in, whether it's the talent part of it or the like practicing or the imagination or the all the different things, how you present yourself on social media. So it is a funny question when it's like, oh, right, what am I? And I really think that my artistry is very much so just an exaggerated version of myself. Like, I've tried to portray that through social media that I'm just kind of like a quirky, dorky, um, slightly goofy, gal that also loves like fantasy and like a little bit extra over the top whimsicality. Like that's what I am in my imagination, but in real life, I'm just this kind of like we're just barely holding the pieces together with duct tape kind of a human.
Totally. What made you, I guess, first of all, how old were you when you started to play the violin?
Gosh, I was 6 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little wee thing. But I will say I did ask for lessons. Like it was my idea. I begged my parents and they, for some reason at 6 years old, I was really into the violin.
What made you like, was there someone that you like a mentor that or someone you looked up to in that world that inspired you?
My parents loved classical music. They had this old record player and they would play like, it was either the Beatles was like the closest thing we had to like contemporary music. My dad loved the Beatles, or it was like the Scheherazade suite or like, Paganini. Like they just loved orchestra music. And so, and like I remember going to some of the like communities orchestra concerts that were like free, and like my parents I think were like, oh, this is free entertainment for the family, and so we would go to those. And so yeah, I just always noticed that the violins, they get all the fast notes, they get all the solos. I was like, that's the star, and so that's why I wanted to play.
Did you ever try any other instruments, musical instruments, or was it just violin?
I did the flute for a little bit. I wasn't great. I'm
Yeah,
definitely
no, I
was
suck too.
better at the violin. I mean, I guess I also put way more time and energy into it, so it's no wonder. But yeah, it
Yeah.
was more my voice.
And how is your dynamic as a family? Do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm actually one of five, and so pretty, good sized family. And but most actually growing up, I was the middle of three. My parents adopted two kids when I was 18, and so then I became one of five. But yeah, so I resonate with the middle child of, the middle child syndrome. But I think that's a big reason as to why I am the way I am.
Uh-huh.
Because not that my parents didn't give me love and attention, adoration, but just middle children kind of get lost in the, in the scuffle of things.
Right, right, right.
Um, but yeah, no, we grew up like on a, kind of out in what we called the country. Like we had chickens and horse, we had a horse. I would help my neighbors milk their cow. Like
Oh,
I grew up a
wow.
little country bumpkin, yeah, for sure. Which I think it's like a great work ethic
Yeah.
and I don't know. There's just like I think about a bunch of my free spiritness comes from the fact that I could run around barefoot in like
Oh,
cornfields, and like I was like a little wild child.
I love that. Yeah, I know no, I am definitely the opposite the way I
Yeah,
I
in the
don't
Bay
I can't
Area.
even dance barefoot, let alone run around in cornfields barefoot.
Oh, and in Arizona, it's so hot that like the roads get scalding, but like I don't know, the thought of putting on shoes when you're like, I could just sprint across the street to get to my friend's
Wow.
house barefoot. So like, I don't know, I had like leather soles on my feet. I was like a little wild
Whoa.
child.
Where do you get that work ethic from? Who in your family was very like focused and determined?
I think part of it came from the fact that, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, my family did well. We were fine, but like in the American scheme of things, we were like we didn't have a lot. And so if I wanted something from a very young age, I knew that I had to figure out a way to earn the money for it myself, and it couldn't come from mom and dad. Like they couldn't afford to pay me to do the extra chores that I wanted to do. And so I remember when I was like I think like 10 years old, me and my friend across the street decided we would hand out business cards through the neighborhood to like give our services to paint your fence or like wash your dog or like whatever. And I tell you, we also weren't smart enough to like put a price on it. It was like, you pay us whatever you think is fair. And
Oh
I tell
no.
you, the amount of work we did for like pennies, but you
Oh my
know, we worked
gosh.
really hard to like buy that. Like if I wanted more than $100 for like my back to school shopping, everything, like I'd earn it myself. You know, so I think that that work ethic came from one, my parents just instilling us like, we can do this, we can figure it out. They gave us ideas, they helped us
That's
implement
great.
the ideas. um and so yeah, I'm really grateful for that situation because it taught me like that if it's not there for you, you make it happen, you figure it out.
Right. How did America's Got Talent come about? Like,
Yes, it it came about you know, way back in the day. I'm talking 2007. I put a video on YouTube, like, and I didn't understand what YouTube was yet. No one really did.
no.
But I put a video on YouTube and it went quote unquote viral for the time.
Hmm.
And you know, it got circulated around enough. And America's Got Talent has talent scouts that like will reach out and like contact people if they think that, hey, this is interesting, and they'll like kind of recruit you almost to go and do the audition. And several years after I posted this video, it accumulated enough views that America's Got Talent reached out, and I went and, well, I remember first calling my mom and being like, "Mom, like, should I do this? I'm terrified. Like, affording a plane ticket to LA, you know, like it was just a lot for like I was paying my way through college, and you know, I'd have to take off work. And I remember my mom just being like, "Yeah, you should do it." And I'm going to meet you there. And so my mom drove and picked me
Oh,
up from the airport. She drove from Arizona. I flew in from Utah, and she picked me up from the airport. She like went to the audition with me, you know, sat outside the room like while I auditioned. Like my mom has been, my both my parents were incredibly supportive, like more than I could ever like hope for. I just
mhm.
sometimes don't understand also how scary that would be as a parent, knowing that your daughter's heart probably is going to be broken in this moment. You know, it's
Yeah.
probably like the likelihood of success is so low in our industry, and especially going on like a TV show like that, it's like chances are she's going to get ripped apart. But just I'm so grateful that
Yeah.
my mom and my parents were like yeah, definitely, you don't want to wonder what would happen, like we have to go. And so yeah, that was kind of the beginning of a trail of events, you know, even though that didn't go
Yeah,
as I hoped it would. It was a catalyst for sure in many
for
ways.
sure. And thank God in a way. Like, first of all, they were so rude. The judges were so
Right.
rude. I love that you use their voices in your, is it your last music video that you released, or was it? It is
Yeah.
brilliant. Like, it gave me chill. I was crying.
Oh, thank
It's
you.
so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And I just love that, you're not trying to numb that part of your life because it is such a huge, I would say, turning point. I don't know. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah. I mean, it was in all the ways that I didn't expect it to be. Like I thought this
mhm.
would be my make or break in terms of like suddenly the world would see me for my talent and what I am, and it would like explode my, you know, my scope across the world. And I just thought it would be changing in that way, but in a more profound way it impacted me because it taught me like, hey, in this industry, you're gonna get pushed down. You're not everybody's gonna believe in you, and you're
Yeah.
gonna have to be strong enough to pick yourself back up. And are you
Yeah.
strong enough to do that? And the amount of times I've had to do that since, I mean, you know, it happens all the time that people don't believe in you, or you feel like you're a joke or whatever, you know, I
Hmm.
don't fit in the industry or whatever. And the amount of times I've like looked back on that experience subconsciously, even just being like, well, that, you know, I got it from that. I can get it from this. I don't have to believe what everybody says about me. And one person's opinion isn't everything. But
Yeah.
also growth. Like back when I was on America's Got Talent, like the whole point of that music video wasn't to prove like I showed you guys and like screw you, you were so wrong about me. It was more to prove that like one moment of your life, like where you are today, doesn't determine who you're going to be later. It's all about what you're willing to put in. And I wasn't ready yet. I really didn't do well on America's Got Talent. But I decided that like I'm just not good enough, and I added the word yet to what they said.
Exactly.
You know,
Can you tell my listeners what body dysmorphia is and how, and I guess what anorexia is, just for people to understand if they don't?
yeah. I mean, it's so crazy that it's a disease that takes over your body and it's connected to your body, but it really all exists in your mind. Like that's the wildest part about it. It's a mind disease, and it's, the fact that you can, like, it's so crazy to think you can look in the mirror, and people told me so many times that what you see isn't real. And like to be told that over and over again, but it's true that like you're seeing this, like this different version of yourself that your mind is creating, and it's not really what is being seen. And then I think the anorexia is just this being absolutely consumed by this control of trying to control your body and make it something else. And by being controlled by this, you stop eating, you start over exercising, the thing that's so scary about anorexia or all of these things is they happen slowly. And because they're in your mind, I don't know how your mind works. I don't know how you think. I don't know how anybody else thinks. All I know is how I think. And so it's really hard to realize you have a huge, massive problem.
Mm.
And I just remember opening up to my mom finally about the fact that I was like debilitatingly depressed, and I didn't care about anything anymore, and I'd become the shell of a human, and it had to happen slowly. I didn't know who I was. And like finally one day I was talking to her about this and expressing it, and I said, and I think about food all the time. Like all I do is think about calories and food and what to avoid. And she just said, that's not normal. And it was the first time that I really realized that like I have a problem. And all I can say is that the amount of freedom that finally came from saying the words like, I think I'm anorexic, like it was like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders, because finally, like, I know how to solve a problem. I know how to work on something that I know what it is. But you don't know how to solve something that's a mystery. And so when I finally realized I was anorexic, it was like, okay, like this is terrifying, but I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna get help. Now that I know what the problem is. And I don't know, being able to separate myself from the disease took years of work, to be like, you're not me, anorexia, you're a problem. And even still to this day, it was really funny. I was talking to a friend. I went to like, I do sculpt yoga and I love it. And I remember one day I was just feeling particularly like whatever we call it, bloated, or like, I try not to use certain words anymore. So
For
I'll just say
sure.
I felt bloated. And I looked in the mirror and even thought like, oh, I don't look good, in my little yoga outfit. 15 minutes into the class, when my body's like pumping and like I'm sweating and I'm feeling like my body activate, I looked in the mirror and I felt fine. And it's just to show you that it's all in your brain.
It
It's all in
really
your
is.
brain. And
It
it's almost
really
funny to
is.
catch it now. It's like, it's like I can look in the mirror and be like, I know you're lying to me, because 10 minutes ago, I felt horrible about my body, and now you look great. No, I caught you in your lie. This is ridiculous. And so it's almost like a game I play with it's like
I
a
know.
dysfunctional relationship, and I get to just be like, you're lying to me, and I know it, and I refuse to believe those thoughts anymore.
Because we're not our thoughts.
We are not our thoughts. They come, they go, and it's up to us to determine which ones we let stay, but they're not who I am.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I feel like I relate to everything you just said. Um, Now I also heard you say, because I am currently going through this. So like you mentioned during the Mayim Bialik interview that you did this with sleep.
You hear like, oh, the average person needs 8 hours of sleep. It's like if the average human needs that much, I can do better. I can work harder. Like,
Well, it's
I don't know.
also
It's
quieter. I Dancing with the Stars bring up anything for you as far as like, eating disorders or anything like that?
No, not at all, actually, because I was working out so much that it didn't have a
Yes.
chance to, like, I
Right.
actually accidentally lost weight. And
For sure.
I remember actually being really kind of like frustrated or upset that I had, my fans, I've been very open about my past, but because, you get so thin on that show when, you're not used to dancing and working out like that. And so I lost a decent amount of weight. And I remember fans and people talking about, like, I think she's sick again. And it
Oh,
really upset me that,
gosh.
I don't know, I just don't think it's ever appropriate to comment on
Never.
anybody else's body.
Never.
And everybody knows that fat shaming is bad, but it's really bad to also talk about anybody's
Of
body in any way,
course.
shape, or form, and especially to tie it up to somebody's mental health and brain. And like, I don't know, I know it came from a good place. People were like, "We're just worried about you," but anyways, I just remember being really hurt by that after
Yeah.
all the work I'd done to be like, because I'm losing. Anyways,
Yeah, no, I hear
I
you.
just have realized that I'm never, for good or worse, I actually don't like to even give compliments to people about their
Yeah.
bodies. I don't think
Yeah.
it's healthy. I don't think, like, even if,
Because you
if
don't
your
know what that
friend,
person's going through. Like, what if you say, you look fabulous. And what if I've been starving myself for the past freaking
literally,
weeks?
Yeah. Or like someone's like sick and you're like,
Yeah.
and or they're so depressed that they haven't been eating. And then you're like, you look
Or
amazing.
you've lost
It's like,
some weight, like good on you.
yeah,
Like I'm
good for
like,
you. Yeah.
I've
I
always felt like
never
that.
ever comment on anybody's body. And I never really thought about it until I read this amazing book called More Than a Body. Everybody should read this book. It is
Okay.
superb. And and they talk about the body as an instrument rather than an ornament, and they go so deep into it that you realize how deep the psychological wiring in our brain is from society. And we all know this,
The
but
way
when
we
you
were raised. Yeah.
everything, this book
Yeah.
is so good. More Than a Body. And it just ever since I read that book, I've never commented on somebody's body again.
That is actually I'm gonna start doing that too because like like I'm not even present when I'm like, oh my God, you look great. Like we just don't know. Because I remember when I was being complimented, I was definitely not healthy.
Right.
There was no
Same.
way. Yeah.
Same. And it was like the best compliment when someone would be like, oh my gosh, you're so thin. I'd be like, thank you. Like,
Like I'll just
yeah,
continue to starve. Like what
I'm
the hell?
starving. Like I've been eating carrots for like the last week. It's
Lettuce,
fine.
for God's sakes. I'm so
Yeah.
tired of
So
lettuce.
yeah, it's just, I don't know. It was
Have
a
you
big,
read the book Body Keeps the Score?
yes, I
Oh, I
have
love
read
that
that
book.
book. That's a
Yeah.
great book too. I love all those books that tie the mind to the body. Like, that one,
It's
Life Without
so,
Ed, was changing
oh,
for me, all
okay.
such
You're
good
gonna have to
things.
text me all these books because I haven't heard of the last two you mentioned. So I need some new
Oh,
reading material. Okay, Dancing with the Stars. Dun 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 dun. Okay, how did your initial meeting go with the executives? Like, were you a fan of the show?
yes, I had actually performed on it, I think twice before.
Yeah,
So I'd come in as a guest and I performed
when we had
while
result
people,
shows.
yes. And so I remember I had like told my management, my publicist, I was like, I want to do this someday. And so like I remember, meeting Dina and like introducing myself and like trying to do all the things of like, remember me, please bring me back. Cause I mean, it's just crazy. I remember being in college and watching one of the very early seasons when Julianne Hough and like
Okay.
the
Elio,
Antonio, it was
Elio,
the speed skater guy.
Apollo
Anyways,
Antonono.
Apollo.
That was
Yes.
season
I
like five or
remember,
something.
yeah, I remember watching their season. That was the first one I saw. And I just was like, this would be so cool. But at the time I was just a college student. So I was like, well, I'm not a dancer and I'm definitely not a star. So like I would never be on this show. But how fun. That looks so fun. And so years later to be like asked then by Dina, and the team to be on the show, I was just so excited. And I remember in my meeting with them, they said, like these are the dates. And I was like, oh, I'm going on tour. There's a huge overlap. And I was like, but it's okay. I'll do it anyway. And they literally looked at me and they were like, I don't think you understand. This is so hard.
So
It's
they
so
said that to you.
taxing.
They said that it's hard, like it's
They
consuming.
did. They almost like, they're like, is there any way you can change your tour dates? And I was like, no, they're already like up, they're already like tickets are sold. And then I point blank asked them, I was like, well, could you bring me back next year? And they were very honest, like, we never know like what's going to be the thing and like what role will be filled by
Yeah.
what personality. So they were very honest that like, we'll definitely consider, but we don't know. And so I decided to do it anyway. And it was so tiring. I was
I'm sure.
so
That's an
like,
understatement.
Mark and I, well, it's funny because Mark tells me still to this day that my season, he's never been more tired because we were flying back and forth and touring. And he was also
Yeah.
opening for me on tour. So he was performing every night as well. And I was doing meet and greets every day, like on
Oh
tour.
no.
It
I'd
would
have
doing
killed you if
shows.
you were my partner.
Well, it's funny because at first he thought it was a great idea too, because him
For
and
sure.
BC had, he was like, oh, we would love to open for you on tour, and then I'll be there anyway. And so,
Yeah.
anyways, he
But it's good.
regretted
That
that
was good that
decision.
Mark had that. Like if you were dancing with like Alan or like someone that maybe, it would have been a lot, but more a lot for like it would have been a lot more a lot dyslexic, a lot more for you, and your schedule, And so
Right.
I have realized that the packages that they show prior to our live performance is almost as important as your dance, right?
100%.
Did you feel like they portrayed you the way that you truly are behind it all? Like because I also think it's so powerful when they show the struggle
Yeah.
with anyone.
Um, I feel like I felt like they showed my personality really well. Like
Mm-hmm.
they made it so that I was like a likable character, which,
Well, how
thank
can you
heavens,
not be likable,
you
Lindsey?
you would hope that they would. But I do remember being very frustrated that they never would ever say anything about the fact that I did not know how to dance.
Oh,
So like the other contestants would sometimes call out me and
yes.
on their packages and be like, well, I'm not a dancer like Lindsey, or Jordan Fisher, who are trained. And I would always be like, that's not fair. Like I just would get so frustrated because the amount of work, I mean, everybody works hard, but maybe I'm biased, but I don't think anyone worked harder our season than me and Mark. Like I was always the last out of every,
Yeah.
because I
You were
just wanted
traveling too.
so
So
well.
yeah.
We were traveling,
Yeah.
but like, I don't know. So doing these challenging routines, it was like really difficult.
It
And I
was.
mean, it's difficult for everybody. So I don't
No,
mean to
no,
make
no. But
myself
your
like
routines were professional routines. I just want to be
they were.
clear.
Well, thank you. Yeah, they were really hard. And so then to be called out as like a professional dancer on the show, I was like, oh. So I would always get really frustrated. I was like, can they just share that like I've never been trained before and I'm working my ass
Why
off?
do they think you were trained? Because you did a music video with Derek?
I think so. Well, I think because I dance in my videos and I dance on stage, but it was more like I would like spin around and I'd lean and also
Yes,
way better
edited
than
too. It was like
I was
edit
gonna say, I'm
yeah,
a fantastic editor. I edit my own music videos, and I
I
was like,
know.
if you saw like my bumbling around, and I've gotten so much better, actually, much thanks to the confidence that the training and the confidence the show gave me, and since like training afterwards. But back then, like it was all editing that made those videos look beautiful, and so people just assumed I was this dancer, and I'm like, I'm not. Like I don't. I'm having a hard time not falling over every night. Like I think one of the things that makes Dancing with the Stars so cool is that it takes people who are very secure in their craft or their art or their profession. Like these are professionals that are competent, and you throw them in ballroom shoes, and it automatically, is going to make you insecure. And I think that's what makes people so raw and real and vulnerable in that show. And that's why people connect with these humans, is because not only is the dancing fun and you get to see them progress, but you get to see someone who's like kind of terrified that normally in most of their life isn't terrified, like they're very used to being good at their thing. And so I think that, yeah, I was usually insecure as I walked out there, but at the same time, I'm also a performer. And
Mm-hmm.
even if I wasn't a dancer, I know how to like have stage presence. I know how to like turn on that little like light inside that's like, all right, time to shine. And I think being a musician too, you connect with music.
Mm-hmm.
And so as long as I could connect with the song,
Mm-hmm.
it's like I could be expressive.
What's the most unexpected thing a camera or microphone caught you saying or doing during rehearsals?
This is a longer than a rapid fire
It's
answer,
okay.
but do you want it?
Yes.
Okay, I've never told this story because they deleted the tape.
Huh? What happened, Lindsey?
So, oh my gosh. Okay,
Wait,
so
they
we were in
meaning the producers deleted it?
um
Or
the
Mark?
camera guy on
Okay.
purpose deleted it
Tell me.
because it was so embarrassing. But it's fine. I can talk about it now. But in the moment, okay. So we're rehearsing, and it was rehearsing for our finale, and I started on Mark's shoulders in the finale. And then I would like he'd like kind of spin me, and I'd literally like wrap my legs around and slide down his body, and then we'd go into the routine. And so, anyways, we did that. We made it through the whole routine. And then I like turn and look at him, and he starts talking through like, okay, we need to tighten up this, we need to tighten up that. And I just, my eyes got so wide as I looked at him, and I realized that I was on my period, and I had completely bled through, and across his shoulder and across his body was a smear of,
Lindsey.
and I didn't know what to say, and I just
Lindsey.
stared at him wide-eyed, and I just said, I have to go. And I ran out of that room and ran into the bathroom. And like, because the rehearsals are so long, you're so sweaty. I had lost track of
Of
time completely.
course.
Anyway, so then after
Oh
I'd like kind of cleaned myself up, and I'd been in there for a while to do so, I come back in like just like I almost left. I was like, could I just go? And I was like, no, I can't.
wait,
I'd
did Mark
wasted some
know?
time. Oh, well, so by the time I walked back in, there's mirrors everywhere. So they'd figured it out,
Oh
obviously.
my
And
God,
I walk
Lindsey.
in, and Mark's wearing a different shirt. He's changed.
Oh my
And the camera
God.
guy, I looked at him and I was like, I'm so sorry. And then I look at the camera guy, and he's like, I deleted the tape.
Oh, that's so nice of him.
So nice of him. Because
Oh my
you
gosh.
never know how far somebody's gonna go on a day in the editing room
No,
when they
you're
think your
right.
your
You're
your
right.
package is boring, and they're like, well, this is
Well,
this is
I don't think that Disney would allow for this, but like, but
I don't think so,
you never
but
know. Sometimes I sometimes wonder, like these people, like some of these costumes. I'm like, wait a second, what?
yeah. Yeah. That was, and
Wow,
Mark couldn't have been
Lindsay.
sweeter.
Oh no,
Mark,
Mark for sure. Like Mark, first of
you,
all, I've never heard this story. So like Mark's like he loves you.
yeah.
He would never.
No, well, he even said, he's like, Lindsay, I don't care. He's like, I've been peed on, I've been spit on, he's like, I've everything. He's
And
like,
how's
the
your
second,
personal life?
you know, my personal life, it's funny. It's not where I ever would have thought it would be at this point in my life. Like, I had this thought recently where I was like, oh my gosh, like 20-year-old Lindsay, like I went to college to get married. I wanted to meet the man of my dreams. And that's pretty much why I was motivated to go to college.
Oh,
And it was always what I thought was like the most important thing, was to get married and be chosen, like have a partner, and have a family. Like that's what you do. And so I think if 20-year-old me could see the future, and I realized that I am still not married and I'm 37, I would have been like that would have been my worst fear. And it's a really beautiful thing that I'm here, and I'm very single right now, for the better. I came out of a not good situation last year, and I've done all the work, and I feel great about myself, and I love myself truly. Most of the time, and I'm like, wow, I'm living very gracefully what was once my worst fear. And I face it every day. And I know that I'm still worth something, just because, even though someone didn't choose me, like that's not what's most important. So it's been a process to like get to this point. But honestly, only in the last like year have I truly gotten to a point where I'm like, of course I still want that, but I don't need it. And I actually believe that for the first time.
you really don't. And girl, I am with you. I'm turning 40. I am single. I am alone, not lonely, and I freaking love myself. Like, and I'm learning to, not always, but like we are just like a work in progress. And I'm so much
Yeah,
less drama. I've been married. You know what? We have to change the vocabulary. It's not about someone choosing us. It's like, who are we choosing?
a
Ourselves,
100%.
right? Like for
Yeah,
real. It's like for
for
me, I
real.
need to retrain my brain and be a better chooser or picker, because like this ain't working. My
Yeah,
pattern was not working.
yeah, same,
I
same. I
am
love
so
that.
happy for you. And by the way, this is like the new thing. Like this is what, there is no tradition, and we're making this tradition. Like it's okay to be
Right.
alone. It's more than okay. It's actually very freaking empowering. So
It
good on you.
is. When you finally like learn that, it's a beautiful thing. And also, I like you're saying, I want to change the narrative that women feel that they're supposed to be, because we only believe that because society, for
Yes.
centuries, it
Yes.
used to be because we had to survive. Like literally,
Right.
you wanted a partner because that was how you survived. We don't need that anymore. We thrive
No,
and we
we need to
good.
get